My sister's fiancé humiliated me at their wedding reception, forcing me out of my seat and pointing to the service exit by the dumpsters. He forgot I wasn't just a guest. I was the venue owner who had comped the entire $45,000 bill, so I reinstated the invoice. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Kin and Karma. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The music was a soft, swelling orchestral piece, something by Debussy that I had personally selected to float through the high, vaulted ceilings of the glass conservatory. From where I stood, the venue looked exactly as I had always dreamed it would when I signed the deed 5 years ago. The late afternoon sun was filtering through the intricate ironwork of the glass roof, casting lace-like shadows over the 300 guests seated at tables draped in heavy, silver linens. It was perfect. It was the Royal Botanical Package, fully comped, a gift that had cost me, in raw overhead and lost revenue, close to $50,000. I shifted my weight from one aching foot to the other. My heels, 3-inch velvet stilettos that matched my maid of honor dress, were beginning to feel like torture devices. I had been on my feet since 4 in the morning, overseeing the florists, checking the catering prep, and soothing my younger sister, Emilia, through 3 separate panic attacks. But it was worth it. Emilia looked radiant at the head table, laughing at something her new husband, Owen, was whispering in her ear. I took a deep breath, smoothing the silk of my dress, and began to walk toward the head table. I was exhausted, dehydrated, and desperate for a glass of water, and 5 minutes to sit down in the chair marked Sophie, maid of honor. I was 3 steps away from the dais when Owen stood up. He didn't smile at me. He didn't offer a hand to help me up the small set of stairs. He just held up a palm, stopping me in my tracks like a traffic cop. "Sophie, hold up," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it had that sharp, projected quality of a man used to ordering people around in boardrooms. I paused, confused. "What's wrong, Owen? Do you need the schedule?" He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound, and adjusted his silk tie. No, we have a bit of a situation. See, Mr. Henderson and his wife just arrived. They weren't supposed to make it, but their flight from Zurich landed early." Mr. Henderson, the managing director of Owen's investment firm, the man Owen had been trying to impress for the last 6 months. "That's great," I said, forcing a smile, though my stomach tightened. "I can have the staff bring in 2 extra chairs for table 5. There's plenty of room." "No," Owen said, shaking his head dismissively. "Table 5 is too far back. Henderson needs to be at the front. He needs to see that we're prioritized. I'm putting him and his wife at the head table." I blinked. The head table was full. It was just the wedding party. "Owen, there are no empty seats up there. That's just for the bridesmaids and groomsmen." "Right," Owen said. He gestured vaguely behind him. "So, we're making room. I've already moved your seat." I looked past him. My placard, the one with the hand calligraph Sophie, was gone. In its place sat a heavyset man in a charcoal suit, already tucking a napkin into his collar. His wife was squeezing into the space where the best man should have been. "You moved my seat," I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Owen, I'm the maid of honor. That's my sister." "It's just a chair, Sophie. Don't be dramatic," Owen snapped, his veneer of politeness slipping. "Look, Henderson is vital for my promotion. You can eat later." "Eat later?" I felt a flush of heat creeping up my neck. "Where am I supposed to sit, Owen? The dinner service is starting in 10 minutes. He looked around the room, scanning the crowded tables, and then his eyes landed on the far corner of the room. He pointed a manicured finger toward the double swinging doors that led to the kitchen and the service alley. "There," he said. "There's a folding chair by the service exit. You can stand by the trash if you have to, or just grab a plate and eat in the back with the rest of the staff. You're working the event anyway, aren't you? Staff doesn't sit at the head table." The room seemed to go silent, though the music was still playing. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. He was pointing at the area where the bussers scraped the leftover food into the compost bins. "You want me to stand by the trash," I repeated, ensuring I heard him correctly. "We're out of seats, Sophie," he said, turning his back on me to wave at Mr. Henderson. "Just handle it, and get someone to refill my wine." I stood there, frozen, watching the back of his expensive tuxedo. I looked at Amelia. She was staring down at her plate, nervously twisting her wedding ring, refusing to meet my eyes. She had heard every word. The betrayal wasn't the loss of the seat. It wasn't even the comparison to the trash. It was the realization that to Owen, and apparently to my sister, I wasn't family. I was just the help that came with the building. Owen turned back to his boss, laughing at a joke, completely unbothered. He had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just the maid of honor. I was the landlord. And he had just violated the lease. For a moment, I considered screaming. I considered flipping the table, grabbing the microphone, and announcing to the entire room that the groom was a narcissistic monster. The urge was so strong my hands were trembling at my sides, but I didn't. That wasn't who I was, and more importantly, that wasn't how a professional behaved. I owned the glass conservatory. My reputation was built on elegance, discretion, and flawless execution. If I caused a scene now, I would look like the unhinged sister, and Owen would spin it as me being jealous or hysterical. I took a slow, shuddering breath, lowered my head, and turned away from the head table. "Everything okay, Miss Sophie?" I looked up to see Marco, my head of catering, standing near the pillar. He was holding a silver pitcher of water, his face pale. He had heard. The waitstaff nearby were exchanging wide-eyed glances. They adored me. I paid them well, treated them with respect, and fought for them when clients were rude. They looked ready to riot on my behalf. "I'm fine, Marco," I lied, my voice steady despite the ringing in my ears. "Please ensure Mr. Henderson, the gentleman in my seat, receives the VIP wine service. We wouldn't want to disappoint the groom." Marco's jaw tightened. "Miss Sophie, you can't be serious. He just told you to." "I know what he said." I cut him off gently. "Just do it, please. I'm going to my office for a moment. Do not disturb me unless the building is on fire." I walked away, head held high, navigating the perimeter of the room. I could feel eyes on me. Some guests looked confused. Why was the maid of honor walking away right before the toasts? I passed table 2, where Abigail, Owen's mother, was holding court. She saw me coming and didn't even try to lower her voice. She was leaning in toward her sister, a woman dripping in diamonds that looked suspiciously like paste. "Well, it makes sense," Abigail said, loud enough for me to hear over the clinking silverware. "She's used to running around in the background. Honestly, it would look strange having her up there with the important people. She's so utilitarian." I didn't stop. I didn't flinch. I just kept walking until I reached the discreet oak door behind the bar that led to the administrative wing. Once I was inside, I locked the door and leaned back against it. The silence of the office was sudden and heavy. The muffled sounds of the reception, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the hum of conversation, felt a million miles away. My office was my sanctuary. It was cool, dim, and smelled of old paper and fresh lilies. I kicked off my heels and sank into my leather executive chair, the physical relief washing over me instantly. But the emotional pain was a sharp, jagged thing in my chest. I looked at the CCTV monitors on my wall. Screen 3 showed the head table. I watched as Owen poured wine for Mr. Henderson, laughing obsequiously. I watched Amelia, my baby sister, looking small and terrified, glancing toward the doors I had just exited. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Amelia. "I'm so sorry. Please don't be mad. He's just really stressed about the promotion. Please come back out. Maybe you can grab a chair from the vendor room. Love you." She wanted me to grab a chair from the vendor room. A metal folding chair. To sit at a wedding I had paid for. I stared at the message, a cold numbness settling over me. She wasn't defending me. She was managing me. She wanted me to swallow the insult so she could keep playing princess. I looked around my office. My eyes landed on the filing cabinet in the corner. Specifically, the drawer marked contracts. Current. Owen thought he was a big shot because he moved numbers around on a screen for a living. He thought power came from a job title or a leased BMW. He didn't understand the power of ownership. He had called me staff. He had told me to stand by the trash. I rolled my chair over to the filing cabinet and pulled out the thick folder labeled Miller Vance Wedding. I opened it and ran my finger down the itemized invoice. Venue rental, Saturday peak season, $12,000. Catering, 300 guests at $150 head, $45,000. Bar package, top shelf open bar, $18,000. Decor and floral custom installation, $8,500. Service charge and gratuity, $12,000. Total due, $0, gifted via owner discretion. At the bottom of the contract, just above Owen's scrawled signature, was a clause I included in every single agreement I drafted. It was the code of conduct and harassment policy. It strictly prohibited any verbal abuse, humiliation, or mistreatment of venue staff or management, granting the venue the right to terminate services immediately without refund or comp. I looked back at the monitor. Owen was now clinking his glass with a fork, standing up to make a speech. He looked like a king, surveying his kingdom. But they had forgotten one crucial thing, I whispered to the empty room. This isn't his kingdom, it's mine. To understand why this betrayal cut so deep, you have to understand what I gave up to get here. I didn't come from money. Our father was a factory line worker, and our mom waited tables at a diner until her knees gave out. I was the oldest, 7 years ahead of Amelia. When our parents died in a car accident just after Amelia turned 19, I became everything to her. Parent, provider, protector. I was 26 then, working as a junior event coordinator, barely scraping by. I used my entire inheritance, what little there was, and took out a terrifying business loan to put a down payment on a dilapidated greenhouse property on the edge of the city. Everyone told me I was crazy. They said a wedding venue in that location would never work. I didn't sleep for 3 years. I scrubbed floors, I planted gardens by moonlight, I negotiated with contractors until my voice was hoarse. I built the glass conservatory brick by brick, tier by tier. I did it so I could build a legacy, something that would ensure Amelia and I never had to worry about rent again. Amelia was the soft one, the dreamer. I sheltered her from the gritty reality of our finances. I paid for her teaching degree. I bought her first car. I wanted her to have the childhood I lost. Maybe I did too good of a job because she grew up thinking things just worked out. She never saw the hustle. Then she met Owen Vance. He looked like every other finance bro in the city, slicked back hair, teeth whitened to an unnatural brightness, and a handshake that felt like a challenge. He met Amelia at a bar, and within 3 months he had completely dazzled her. I tried to like him, I really did, but from the first dinner we had together, the red flags were waving. So, you run a party hall? He had asked, swirling his scotch. I own a luxury event venue, I had corrected him. Right, catering and napkins. Cute, he'd said, dismissing my life's work with a wave of his hand. My mother, Abigail, is on the board of the symphony. She knows real events. Abigail was worse. She was a woman who wore her old money like armor. She treated Amelia like a charity project, a quaint little teacher that her son had picked up. But she treated me like a servant. When the wedding planning started, I made the mistake of offering the venue as a gift. I wanted Amelia to have a fairy tale. We'll take the platinum package, Abigail had declared at the first planning meeting, not even looking at the price sheet because she knew she wasn't paying. But Sophie, dear, we need to change the draping. The standard silk you use is a bit pedestrian, and the menu, we can't have chicken. Owen only eats steak, and we need lobster for the appetizers. The lobster adds $30 a head, I had said gently. Oh, stop pinching pennies, Owen had snapped, looking up from his phone. It's a tax write-off for you anyway, isn't it? Just get the lobster, we want this to be classy. For 6 months, I swallowed their insults. I let Abigail criticize my staff. I let Owen demand changes to the lighting grid that cost me thousands in labor. I let them treat me like an invisible wallet. Why? Because Amelia would look at me with those big, teary eyes and say, Sophie, please, he just wants it to be perfect. He loves me, Please do it for me. So I did. I worked 18-hour days to absorb the costs. I called in favors from vendors I had known for years. I crafted a wedding worth nearly $100,000 for zero cost to them. And how did they repay me? I looked at the CCTV monitor again. The camera zoomed in slightly on table 2. Abigail was whispering to the woman next to her, gesturing toward the empty chair where I should have been sitting. She laughed, a cruel, tight expression. Then the camera panned to the head table. Owen was standing, microphone in hand, his face flushed with wine and ego. I just want to thank everyone for coming, Owen boomed, his voice echoing through the speakers I had installed. We worked hard to make this night happen. You know, they say if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And that's what we did. We built this night from the ground up. He paused for applause. And I want to give a special shout-out to the staff. They're doing a great job keeping the glasses full. Let's hear it for the help. He pointed to the back of the room, near the trash, where he thought I was standing. He didn't thank me. He didn't mention my name. He didn't acknowledge the gift. He called me the help. That was the moment the sadness in my chest evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I wasn't the help. I was the vendor, and the client was delinquent. I swiveled my chair back to the computer. I opened the billing software. I pulled up the invoice 2044B. I moved the cursor to the discount comp field. I highlighted the 100% entry, and I hit delete. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Deleting the discount was just the first step. The real leverage was in the contract itself, the one Owen had signed with a flourish, barely glancing at the fine print because he assumed family contracts were just formalities. But I was a business owner first. And in business, you protect your assets. I opened the digital file for the signed contract. Clause 14. 3. Force majeure and behavioral termination. The venue reserves the right to terminate services immediately in the event of harassment, abuse, or public defamation of venue staff or ownership. Clause 14. 4 was even better. In the event of termination due to Clause 14. 3. All comped or discounted services are voided, and the client is liable for the full retail value of services rendered up to the point of termination, payable immediately. I printed the invoice. The total stared back at me in bold, black ink, $45,250. But I needed more than just a piece of paper. I needed to ensure this wasn't just a family squabble. I needed it to be a professional transaction. I picked up my office phone and dialed the extension for Marco, my head of catering. Marco, I said, my voice calm but steely. I need you to come to the office. Bring the incident log. The incident log? Marco asked, sounding surprised. We only used that for extreme cases, drunk guests fighting, property damage, theft. Yes, and bring Sarah, the floor manager. 2 minutes later, Marco and Sarah were in my office. Sarah looked furious. Sophie, I heard what he said, about the trash. It's disgusting. It is, I agreed, sliding the incident log across the desk. I need you both to write down every interaction you've had with the groom and his mother today, every rude comment, every demand that wasn't in the contract, every time they treated you poorly. They didn't hesitate. Marco started writing immediately. He snapped his fingers at me during appetizers, told me the crab cakes were rubbery and to fix it or get out. Sarah added, his mother told one of the servers she looked too ethnic to be serving the head table. I had to pull her off the floor because she was crying in the walk-in. My blood ran cold. I hadn't known about the server. She said what? Too ethnic, Sarah repeated, her voice shaking with anger. And Owen laughed when he heard it. That was it. That was the nail in the coffin. This wasn't just about me being disrespected. This was about my team, my family being abused in my house. Okay, I said, taking the log back. That's all I needed. Sarah, tell the DJ to cut the music in 10 minutes. Marco, tell the kitchen to hold the main course. Hold the main course. Marco's eyes widened. Sophie, are we shutting it down? Not yet, I said, standing up and smoothing my dress. I grabbed the invoice and the incident log. We're renegotiating. I walked over to the safe in the corner of my office. I spun the dial and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond tennis bracelet, my grandmother's. I had planned to give it to Amelia during the speeches. I snapped the box shut and put it back in the safe. Then I unlocked my office door. The sounds of the party flooded back in laughter, clinking glasses, the false cheer of a celebration built on my dime. I walked out, not toward the back, but straight toward the DJ booth. The DJ, a guy named Leo who had worked with me for years, saw my face and immediately lowered the volume. "Everything okay, boss?" he asked, pulling off his headphones. "Give me the mic, Leo," I said. He handed it over without a word. The music stopped abruptly. The room quieted down, confusion rippling through the crowd. Heads turned toward the DJ booth. I didn't look at Amelia. I didn't look at the guests. I looked straight at Owen, who was still standing at the head table, a glass of wine halfway to his mouth. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice projecting clearly through the speakers. "We have a slight technical difficulty that needs to be addressed immediately. Owen, could you please join me in the office? We have a billing issue." The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the polished concrete floor. Owen's face went from confused to annoyed in a heartbeat. He set his glass down with a heavy thud and glared at me. "Sophie, what are you doing? We're in the middle of speeches." "It's urgent," I said, not backing down. "Now please." He scoffed, shaking his head as if dealing with a petulant child. He leaned over to Mr. Henderson and whispered something that made the older man chuckle. Then he stood up, buttoning his jacket with exaggerated slowness, and walked toward me. "Unbelievable," I heard him mutter as he got close. "You really are trying to ruin this, aren't you? Jealousy is a ugly look, Sophie." I turned and walked back into my office, leaving the door open for him. He followed, slamming it shut behind him. "What is your problem?" He hissed, his face inches from mine. "You just embarrassed me in front of my boss. Billing issue. Are you insane? It's a free wedding." "It was a free wedding," I corrected him, walking behind my desk and sitting down. "I didn't offer him a chair. Until you violated the contract." I slid the invoice across the desk toward him. He looked at it confused. "What is this?" "That is the bill for today's event," I said calmly. "Venue rental, catering, bar, staffing, decor. Total comes to $45,250. He laughed a loud, incredulous bark. "You're joking. You can't charge me. We have an agreement. You said it was a gift." "The gift," I said, leaning forward, "was contingent on you treating me and my staff with basic human decency. You failed. You humiliated me publicly. You abused my staff. You created a hostile work environment in my place of business." I made a joke about a chair. He shouted, throwing his hands up, "And now you're trying to extort me." "It wasn't just a joke, Owen. You told the owner of this venue to stand by the trash. You told my staff to get out. Your mother made racist comments to my servers. That is a breach of contract." I pulled out the signed contract and pointed to Clause 14. 3. Read it. He didn't look at the paper. He looked at me with pure venom. "I'm not paying you a dime. You're Amelia's sister. You have to do this." "I don't have to do anything," I said. "This is a business, Owen, and right now you are a client who is refusing to pay for services rendered. If this invoice isn't paid in full in the next 10 minutes, the event is over. The bar closes. The music stops. The food goes back in the fridge, and security escorts you out." His face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. "You wouldn't dare. Amelia would never forgive you." "Amelia isn't the one who treated me like garbage," I shot back. "You did. You wanted to be the big man, right? You wanted to show Mr. Henderson how important you are. Well, here's your chance. Pay the bill." He stared at me, his chest heaving. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. He didn't have $45,000. I knew his finances. He was leveraged to the hilt on his car and his condo. He was banking on this promotion to pay off his credit cards. "I can't pay this right now," he said, his voice dropping to a growl. "I don't have it on me." "Then you'd better call your mother," I said, picking up my phone, "because the clock is ticking." Suddenly, the door burst open. Abigail marched in, followed closely by a terrified-looking Emilia. "What is going on here?" Abigail demanded, her pearls rattling. "Why has the music stopped? Why is everyone whispering?" "Sophie is trying to blackmail us," Owen shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She's demanding 50 grand or she's kicking us out." Abigail turned to me, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Is this true, you petty little?" "It's a business transaction, Abigail," I said, cutting her off. "Owen violated the venue's harassment policy. The comp is void. Pay the bill or the wedding is over." Emilia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Sophie, please don't do this. Everyone is watching." My heart broke for her, but I couldn't back down. "Emilia, he told me to stand by the trash. He treated me like I was nothing. If I let him do this to me, what do you think he's going to do to you for the rest of your life?" Emilia looked at Owen, then back at me. She looked lost. "She's jealous, Emilia," Owen yelled. "She's just jealous that you're happy and she's alone with her plants. Don't listen to her." "Pay the bill, Owen," I said, my voice hard as stone, "or get out of my venue." The standoff in my office was suffocating. The air felt thick with tension, smelling faintly of Owen's expensive cologne and Abigail's overpowering perfume. Abigail let out a sharp, derisive laugh. "This is ridiculous. You're bluffing. You wouldn't humiliate your own sister like this. We're going back out there, we're going to finish our meal, and you are going to apologize." She grabbed Owen's arm. "Come on, Owen, ignore her." They turned to leave. "Marco," I said into my headset, "cut the power to the main hall." In an instant, the muffled hum of the ventilation system died. The sliver of light under the office door vanished as the main chandeliers outside went dark. A collective gasp rose from the 300 guests in the hall. Abigail froze. Owen spun around, his eyes wide with panic. You turned off the lights," he stammered. "I told you," I said, standing up. "The event is suspended until payment is received." "You are ruining my son's wedding." Abigail shrieked, advancing on me. "I will sue you. I will ruin this business. Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are, Abigail," I said, opening a drawer and pulling out a second file. "You're the woman who was removed from the symphony board 3 years ago for embezzling funds from the charity gala. I did my due diligence when you tried to tell me how to run my business." Abigail's face went white. She stepped back as if slapped. That was a misunderstanding." "It was settled." "And you, Owen," I continued, turning to him. "You're worried about Mr. Henderson. Does Mr. Henderson know about the creative accounting you did on the Miller account last quarter? The reason you're so desperate for this promotion is because you need the bonus to cover the margin call on your personal trading account." Emilia gasped. "Owen, what is she talking about?" Owen looked like a trapped animal. "She's lying, Em. She's crazy. She's making things up to hurt us." "I'm not making it up," I said calmly. "I heard you bragging about it to your best man in the groom's suite. The walls are thin, Owen, and my security system records audio in the private suites for liability reasons." I didn't actually have audio of that specific conversation. That was a bluff. But I knew about the margin call because my friend in compliance at his firm had mentioned red flags on his account over drinks last week. I had pieced the rest together. Owen's reaction confirmed everything. He paled, sweat beading on his forehead. "You recorded me," he whispered. "I protect my business," I said, "just like I'm protecting my sister right now." Emilia looked at Owen, really looked at him for the first time that day. "Owen, is it true? Are you in trouble?" "It's just a temporary cash flow issue." Owen snapped at her, his facade cracking completely. "God, why do you have to be so stupid? Just shut up and let me handle this." The room went silent. Owen had just shown his true face. He had called his bride stupid in front of her sister and his mother on her wedding day. Emilia recoiled. The tears stopped, replaced by a look of shock. "Don't speak to her like that," I said, stepping around the desk to stand between them. "I'll speak to her however I want." Owen yelled, "She's my wife, and you're just the landlord. Now turn the lights back on, or I swear to God. Or what? I challenged him. You'll hit me, in front of witnesses, in a building covered in cameras. I looked at Abigail. The invoice, Abigail, $45,250. Credit card, wire transfer, or certified check. Right now. Abigail was shaking. She looked from Owen to me, calculating the damage. She knew if this got out, the embezzlement mention, the public scene, her social standing was toast. Fine, she spat, digging into her clutch. She pulled out a black Amex card and slammed it on my desk. Take it, but you will regret this, Sophie. You will never work in this town again. I own this town's wedding industry, Abigail, I said, picking up the card. I don't need your recommendation. I ran the card through the terminal. Approved. The receipt printed with a satisfying ZZZZZT sound. I tore it off and handed it to her. Thank you for your business, I said. Now get out of my office. We're going back to the party, Owen sneered, straightening his tie. And you're going to stay in here like a good little servant. He grabbed Amelia's hand. Come on, Em. Amelia didn't move. She stared at Owen's hand gripping her wrist. Amelia, Owen said, tugging her. Let's go. Henderson is waiting. Amelia looked up at me. Her eyes were sad but clear. He called me stupid. He did, I said softy, and he made you stand by the trash. He did. Amelia pulled her hand out of Owen's grip. I don't think I want to go back out there with you, Owen. Owen froze. What? I think, Amelia said, her voice gaining strength, I think Sophie is right. You don't respect us. You don't respect me. Amelia, stop being dramatic. Abigail barked. You're married, you made a vow. Now get out there and cut the cake. No, Amelia said. She looked at me. Sophie, can we end it? Can we just make them all go away? I smiled, a genuine, fierce smile. I can do whatever you want, Em. It's my venue. Then end it, Amelia said. I want a divorce. And I want them out. I turned to my computer and typed a quick command into the PA system interface. With pleasure, I said. I hit the emergency evacuation protocol non-fire button on my control panel. It was designed for brawls or severe weather, triggering the house lights to full brightness and cutting all audio feeds instantly. The office door swung open, and I marched out, not toward the back, but straight onto the main floor. The sudden, harsh fluorescent work lights flooded the room, revealing the confused, blinking faces of 300 guests. The romantic atmosphere evaporated instantly. It was just a big, bright room now. Amelia followed me, her face pale but set in stone. Owen and Abigail scrambled after us, looking frantic. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice booming through the emergency PA system, overriding the dead DJ booth. May I have your attention, please? The murmuring stopped. Every eye turned to me. I stood on the small stage where the sweetheart table was, right next to the cake that had cost me $800 in imported fondant. Due to unforeseen circumstances involving a breach of contract and personal conduct violations by the groom, I said, gesturing to Owen, who was now frozen near the entrance of the dance floor, this event is hereby terminated. Please collect your belongings and exit the venue in an orderly fashion. A collective gasp went through the room. People started whispering furiously. Mr. Henderson stood up at the head table, looking bewildered. She's lying, Owen screamed, running toward the stage. She's crazy, don't listen to her, the party is still on. The party is over, Owen, I said into the mic, my voice calm and authoritative. Security, please escort Mr. Vance and Mrs. Vance off the premises immediately. Two of my largest security guards, men who looked like they were carved out of granite, stepped out of the shadows. They moved with professional efficiency, flanking Owen. Don't touch me, Owen shouted, swatting at a guard's hand. Do you know who I am? I'm the groom. And this is private property, the lead guard said, grabbing Owen's arm in a vice grip. Let's go, sir. Abigail tried to intervene, screeching about lawsuits and her lawyers, but the second guard simply blocked her path. Ma'am, please, he said, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Mr. Henderson watched the scene unfold with a look of pure distaste. He walked over to where Owen was struggling. "Vance," Henderson said, his voice cutting through the noise. Owen stopped struggling. "Mr. Henderson, sir, this is all a misunderstanding. My sister-in-law is—" "Save it," Henderson said, adjusting his glasses. "I don't care about your family drama. I care about judgment. And screaming at security guards while your bride stands there crying. That shows exceptionally poor judgment." He looked at me, then at Amelia. "My apologies, ladies, I'll be leaving now." He turned and walked out, followed by his wife. The rest of the guests, realizing the show was over, began to shuffle toward the exits, casting pitying glances at Amelia and disgusted looks at Owen. "Amelia," Owen shouted as he was dragged backward. "Amelia, tell them to stop. You're my wife, you have to fix this." Amelia walked to the edge of the stage. She looked down at him, her eyes red but dry. "I'm not fixing anything, Owen," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "And I'm not your wife. We haven't signed the license yet, remember. You were too busy with Mr. Henderson to sign it before the ceremony." The color drained from Owen's face. Please." "Goodbye, Owen," she said. The guards hauled him out the double doors, his protests fading into the night. Abigail followed, shooting me a look of pure hatred before disappearing into the parking lot. The room emptied slowly until it was just me, Amelia, and my staff. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't oppressive anymore. It felt clean. Amelia sat down on the edge of the stage, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Sophie," she sobbed. "I ruined everything. I wasted your money. I wasted everyone's time." I sat down next to her and put my arm around her shoulders. "You didn't ruin anything, Em. You dodged a bullet. A really expensive, narcissist-shaped bullet." She laughed through her tears, a ragged sound. "But the money, the 45,000. "Abigail paid it," I said, pulling the receipt out of my pocket. "Full amount, plus tip." Amelia looked at the receipt, eyes widening. "She actually paid." "She didn't want a scene," I said. "Ironically, she paid to avoid exactly what just happened." I looked out at the empty hall. The flowers were still beautiful. The cake was still perfect. The champagne was still chilled. "You know," I said, looking at Marco, who was hovering nearby. "We have 300 steak dinners, 5 cases of champagne, and a really excellent DJ who's already been paid." Amelia looked up, wiping her eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I stood up and clapped my hands. "Marco, Leo, Sarah, get everyone in here. Kitchen staff, valet, security, everyone, we're having a party." The after-party was better than the wedding could have ever been. My staff, who had been on their feet for 12 hours, finally got to sit down and eat like kings. We feasted on filet mignon and lobster tail. We drank the vintage champagne meant for the toast. Leo played 80s pop hits instead of the stuffy classical playlist Owen had demanded. Amelia danced with Marco. I danced with the dishwasher. We laughed until our sides hurt, purging the stress and the toxicity of the last 6 months. The next morning, the fallout began. I filed a restraining order against Owen and Abigail, citing the threats made in my office. With the security footage and the incident log as evidence, the judge granted it immediately. Owen tried to fight the venue charge with his credit card company, claiming services weren't rendered. I sent them the signed contract, the incident log, and the video of him screaming at my staff. The chargeback was denied. 2 weeks later, Amelia got a call from a friend who worked at Owen's firm. Owen had been let go. Apparently, Mr. Henderson hadn't appreciated the public spectacle or the rumors about his margin calls. Last I heard, Owen was working at a mid-tier accounting firm in Jersey, living in a studio apartment. Abigail, humiliated by the wedding disaster gossip that swept through her social circle, retreated to her vacation home in Florida and stopped attending charity galas. As for Amelia, she moved in with me for a while. We spent the evenings drinking wine and planning her new life. She went back to school to get her master's in education, something Owen had always told her was a waste of time. She's dating a nice architect now, someone who asks her about her day and treats waitstaff with respect. The Glass Conservatory is doing better than ever. The story of the wedding that wasn't became a bit of an industry legend. Clients now know two things about me. I throw the most beautiful weddings in the state, and I do not tolerate disrespect. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I was walking through the main hall, checking the floral arrangements for a spring gala. The sun was filtering through the glass roof, just like it had on that day. I stopped at the head table. I looked at the chair where I was supposed to sit as maid of honor. I smiled. I didn't need a seat at someone else's table. I built the table. And from now on, I decide who gets to sit there.